Well, fantastic. We are making a hard transition from leadership into AI. Our session is focused on AI and branding. And I wanted to start with the thought that this is not really a new conversation. Communities, social media, reviews all took storytelling out of the hands of brands. But what we're finding now is that AI is just accelerating this, both through the use of tools as well as through the use of LLMs as the first point of contact for many brand engagements. So we want to talk today not just about the technology, but the implications of AI for trust, authenticity, design, safety, and what it means to steward a brand in an increasingly synthetic world. So I'd like to start by first thanking my panelists for joining me here today. I'm excited for a hopefully provocative and interesting conversation. And we're going to start at the top with the illusion of control. And I want to start with you, Jessica, and just ask the question, is brand control even possible when anyone can generate content in your voice or your aesthetic?
Hi, thank you. So is it possible? Yes, it's going to be difficult, but is it necessary? Absolutely. I think anybody who does brand marketing has been in a meeting where somebody from engineering or finance has been like, I mocked this up and I'd love to put it on a t-shirt or a social post. And you're like, oh, muffin. Hot pink is not a brand color. We cannot do that. So because everybody wants to create, everybody wants to be like us, they're excited that they can create, and they don't have necessarily the same education and skills that we do. So it is really important for your governance team to be on top of it. I think something that we've done, especially when you have like a large company, everything has to go through the brand team to be approved to be used anywhere. And we're actually implementing AI into our governance tools so that it knows our brand guidelines, it can pick things out so that our governance team can very quickly and efficiently react to all of the stuff that people are bringing in. But I think there's definitely going to be a need for brand governance and consistency if brands want to succeed in AI.
I think I want to add to that, but just quick call out. Y'all know y'all got my picture wrong. This will make everybody laugh, though.
Oh, yeah, you're not kidding.
Yeah, I know, right? I think when we're thinking about like AI and brand guidelines, I think it's going to evolve the way we have brand guidelines as well. So we're going to transition from less of like a PDF that you share around, but more like training your AI models that will be able to do that automatically based on the input from the brand guidelines that you do have in there.
Well, and that leads me to my next question, which is really for you, Alex, which is there's this notion of orchestrating narratives versus influencing narratives. And if you think about the way LLMs are coming into more prominence in terms of the way people are introduced to brands, introduced to brand narratives, how do you strike the right balance between orchestration and influence?
I think there's a healthy balance that has to be struck, and I think that brands do control quite a bit of that. Depending on what how you're controlling your AI, whatever setup you have in place, and with it, I think it's and apologies. Can you just repeat that question again?
Sure. It's how do you balance the orchestration of narratives against the influence of narratives?
There's it's a healthy balance. I think you have to know. You've got to strike the right balance in terms of, exactly what your brand wants to be about and controlling that to an extent, but also leave some freedom for your ambassadors to do something with that as well.
Okay. And then as we see AI come into the forefront, both from a tools perspective and as a tool for creators and co-creation, I'd love to know from you, Helen, like what part of the old brand model is breaking faster?
Everything's breaking. I can't keep track.
It's all broken.
I mean, I'm going to answer a couple of different questions, a couple of things that has come up. Yes. I think that we can't control anything anymore. Everything's changing all the time, and consumers are able to create things so fast. And there has to be a certain amount of comfort level with brands and being flexible about what your brand is and what it stands for. And I think that the more consistent we are with our interactions with consumers, and the more consistently we show up everywhere, whether that's in Reddit threads or in our communication or on social or wherever we show up as a brand, the more consistent we are, the more trust we gain from our consumers, and the more confidence they have to engage with our brand in an authentic way. So it's all just an illusion. We have no control.
Yeah, I would add to that, Helen. I absolutely agree. I think trust is actually going to be the differentiator in the climate that we're in, because to your point, we control nothing anymore.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can influence that though, right?
Yes.
I mean, so I can speak, wholeheartedly from an employer brand perspective, because we have always had to kind of find our own footing. And we are, we're the separate brand outside of the company brand. And we've always had to try and influence from afar. And I think that you still have that power to do that, though. You can't control it. Like you said, everybody's going to create a whole lot of crap that's out there. But I think you have the ability to influence that, and you should.
And I think what's so interesting, too, is that we spent so much time in the last decade or so trying to work with creators to influence people. And now it's so clear that we have to influence the algorithms, which is like both terrifying but just very real.
Yep.
And I think the more consistent we are with both humans and algorithms, that's how we can have any kind of governance over our brand.
Well, I think that's a really interesting direction, and I wanted to hand this next question to you, Jessica, so let me finish with the mic and then I'll pass. As we think about consistency, as we think about the ways we build trust through now robots delivering our messages, where should AI sit in branding? Does it sit for us as a tool? Does it sit for us as a driver? Where does it really sit in our ecosystem?
I think it's going to be a little bit of both, honestly. There's AI, first and foremost, at least right now, and we don't know where we're going in 6-8 months or years. It is a tool. It is not something that can do our jobs. It is something that we as brain marketers are using to do our jobs better, differently, but it's not replacing the education that we have, the skills that we've all gained. It's something that we're using to make those better. But it is just going to become a bigger and bigger part of our lives. We are now going to have, as everyone was saying, two audiences, the human audience and the algorithm audience. We're doing it now in Google. What t-shirt should I buy? Google is going to give you 3 options instead of the 50 that you might take a look at. And so we're going to have to deal with 2 different audiences, one that is going to be very data-driven, reputation-driven, and one that is going to still care about emotion. And there's no way that we cannot have both of those together if we want to actually reach the people that we are trying to reach.
Wait, I want to challenge you for 1 second.
Okay.
AI can absolutely do my job, and it can do it better, because I lead brand creative review every day, and people bring me stuff, and I am often very irritated when people show me bad creative. I'm like, no, this is not good.
Yeah.
But then I also have to think a little hard about, well, is that the right hex code? Is that the right red? Is that the right usage of that word mark? AI will be much more consistent and less cranky and far more consistent than I will ever be. And so it's just interesting to think about how AI will influence brand, right? Because maybe if it does all the tedious stuff, I can focus more on creating beautiful things.
Right, which I don't think it will replace you, because it knows the data behind it. It knows the very basic things, but it's not going to look at something and be like, well, that's bad creative. That isn't speaking to us. That's not making that human connection. So I think, again, AI is a tool for us to use, but it's worthless if the person behind it doesn't know what they're doing. You have to check that. You have to be in control. You have to be driving the car, and AI is just a way to get us there.
I mean, I'm just an LLM trained on like decades of hipster shit, like it is just what it is.
Yeah.
But I think once we find that sweet spot of the things that I know and the things that I have experienced and smelled and heard and tried, and with the efficiency of robots, it's like, who knows what could happen? And I think that's what's so interesting.
Yeah. It's a whole new world.
So as you think about how you create that authenticity through the robot, how do brands signal what's real when synthetic voices and faces and influencers are everywhere? And Courtney, I'll hand you that question first.
I mean, granted, I think one of the questions that your audience will always ask in the back of their mind is this AI? Right. Then I think that click down is this authentic to the brand? Right. So I think every company at some point will be using, whether it's a voice or they had AI in a video, it will be a part of it. But is it being used responsibly? Is it being used authentic to the way that the brand shows up? I think that is actually more important than versus if I decided to use an AI voice for a commercial versus an actual VO talent for that commercial.
So then how does that build back into transparency? Do we need to identify when we're using AI in our branding and our advertising? Is it like a food label for us moving forward? Like, how does that
I mean, I guess it really just depends on the company and exactly how they see it, right? There are some that are going to be transparent. Like some of these things may be generated by AI. That small little disclaimer at the bottom. That might become a thing where people are like, oh, some of this is AI generated, some of this is human as well. Because I think that's where like the part where it's really just this collaboration between technology and humans with AI, right? And that's where the beauty of it comes in. Having that partnership, us collaborating with AI, using it in ways that help push the brand, push our narrative.
No, I agree with you. And I think that should be there, right? Because there's a lot of stuff out there. I think we're kind of knee deep in AI and marketing, so we know that. But I think to consumers or audience segments that we're working with, they don't know what AI is. And I think, we had a prep call about this. I think you should be as transparent as you can be. I think that's going to help you stand out. And I mean, like you said, it only comes down to the brand, but I think you're better off by doing that versus kind of leaving it up for granted, right? And then there's a lot of assumptions that can be made.
And I think that's right, but we're using AI to do almost everything. Like it is everywhere. I think that you're going to have to pick and choose eventually. Like, what do you feel needs to be transparent in AI, and what do you think people are just going to be okay with? So, for example, our company opened CES this year, and our CEO was the lead speaker, and so we were creating the opening video for not just our part of CES, but CES as a whole. And so our company wanted to take a very strong line on, we are an AI company. The whole CES was about AI, but it's not going to take over the world, for lack of a better term. We don't want people running out of CES screaming like the world is falling. So we created a video solely with AI. It was 100% produced and created by AI. And at the end of the video, though, before our CEO walked onto stage, we did have a end card that said, this video was conceived by humans, made possible by AI. Because we wanted everybody to know that this was AI, but we couldn't have made it without AI, and AI couldn't have made it without us. And so we really wanted to show that there is a balance, and we are transparent, but there are humans behind the things that we're doing.
I think the trickiest part is knowing when, right? It's there's obviously lots of efficiency gains by using AI tools. I mean, we're in the cybersecurity business, and we are in the job of protecting people and detecting when something is AI or not. And so I encourage my team to never use AI unless absolutely necessary. When employee brand wants to make things with AI, I'm like, go to town. It's never going to see consumers, right? So it's about knowing when. But I think what's really interesting is I do wish there were more governance, right? I wish that there was that we had to be more transparent, and so that everybody's just operating from the same playing field. I do think that it's hard. It's hard. It's getting harder and harder to tell the difference. Like, and my kids are absolutely amazing. They can look at something and be like, "That's definitely AI," whereas I have to look twice, right? But I think it's in a couple. I don't know. In a year, probably you won't be able to tell the difference. And so I think, but I think we have to be choiceful about when.
Yeah. Right. And then maybe a little bit more of a provocative question is, does the authenticity and transparency matter if the experience is great? Alex, I'll throw it to you first.
I think it definitely matters. I mean, the experience can be great, but it still has to be authentic. I mean, and that's probably a terrible buzzword. We all use that up and down, but I think you still got to make it authentic as possible.
Yeah, and I would say that, honestly, transparency builds trust.
Great.
You know what I mean? I have nothing to hide. I'm going to be transparent, which means your audience is going to build that trust to be able to believe what you say. So when a time comes when you actually do need it, that trust that you've already built, it's a whole lot easier.
Especially because trust is gained over many positive interactions, but it's lost in a moment. So I think.
Right. So how would you guys, to your point, Helen, the trust is lost in a moment. We all know AI has the power to hallucinate powerfully. We all know it doesn't always get the answer right. So how do we recover from those moments when, not through our own fault, not through something we've put out, but the LLM is hallucinating something against the brand that we need to correct? How do we respond? I'll throw it to anybody who's got it. Oh, no one wants this question.
I mean, do you want to?
You can go ahead first.
I think, for us, it's pretty well known that AI does hallucinate. And, we have some state guards in hold, but, it's reviewed before it's posted. It's, does our brand, everything is gone, especially like in social. It's not posted directly through AI. Everything that's created is put through humans. But I think kind of to what we're talking about, every brand has made mistakes, and the ones that make it a bigger deal are the ones that ignore it. If AI makes a mistake, I think transparency and to own it and say, we made a mistake, this is what happened, this is what we do, and this is how we're going to keep that from happening in the future. I think it's not a whole lot different than when a human makes a mistake. It's still something that you got to own and correct and make sure that your audience knows that you're on top of it.
I agree. And I think just like, when social media started and then companies started getting their social media listening, I think that kind of rigor also needs to be in place for the AI generated content that will come out of the company that you're working for, the company that you're building. Because again, these systems are going to get to a point where they can generate and push out content in some aspects. And so maybe having that kind of rigor set up where, again, yes, you're going to admit it. You're going to call it out. You're going to say, this is what we're going to do in the future. But maybe having that listening that we put together for social media, for like social media listening into this AI generated content could be helpful as well.
Helen, you and I talked, and I thought that one of the points that you made that I found was really fascinating in our introductory conversation was the notion of AI is like any other tool. It needs to be thoughtfully considered in how we apply and how we use it, and how we integrate it into this ever-growing marketing stack that we have at our disposal. And I would love for you just to talk a little bit more about that.
I mean, I think I talked about it before with knowing when. Yeah. Knowing is half the battle. That's all there is.
G.I. Joe taught us.
Okay, great. All right, so I would like to then move to this notion of AI is the new middleman. So what does it mean? What happens when AI assistants become the first touch point between a brand and a consumer? And how does that change the way we think about building brand, owning our brand narratives, constructing campaigns, when we know there is now this new intercessor in the mix?
And no one knows, right? But right now, we're doing a pilot with OpenAI, and we're running ads. And so we had AI writing copy to run an AI in answer engines. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Right. And so then we pulled the agent off and then we wrote some copy ourselves. And, and it's like, they're both kind of performing well. Nobody knows. I think like it's again, I go right back to it's knowing when and just trying different things and seeing what works.
Yeah, so I actually think we already have that set up. If you look at, you don't have just SEO anymore. You have GEO, which has set you up in a situation where you actually have to optimize your website, your career page, whatever you're doing. You have to optimize for that to be the first option there that AI is shooting out. Like the best example is if you Google right now in Gemini. I mean, if your verbiage is wrong, if you're not planning for that in advance, and you're strictly only focused on SEO, you're losing out to that audience. And that's something that everyone needs to, take note on.
So what does brand preference look like when a machine makes the first choice?
Do you want to answer that? Are you laughing?
She laughed hard.
No, I'm like,
I'm laughing because it just depends. I mean, you will get a little bit of everything. Like sometimes you'll get something that's absolutely great. Sometimes you will get something that is trash. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where, like, for us, our knowledge and the judgment that we have, we're able to say, like, whether this is good or not, where this needs to be tweaked or not. So I've had it where it has run the gamut, and it's just like, well, I guess, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
well, and I think if we're saying that, right now, if you go shopping and a bot is going to be the first person that's looking at all of our marketing, is that, I think AI is going to optimize everything. It's going to look at it immediately. It's going to look at all of your case studies, all of your PR, all of your customer reviews. It's going to look at everything that you do online, and based on everything that you have out there, it's going to make a recommendation to that person. But the bot, at least now, is not going to decide what to buy. It's going to recommend something, but it's still up to the human to decide, oh, this is what I want to buy. This is what I want to do. This is a service that I want. And so I think back to what I was saying, we are going to have two audiences that we now have to market to, that we now have to think about. We have to think about optimizing for an algorithm, and we have to think about reaching out to the human to make them want us over somebody else.
For me, I think the question is why? Why is the bot recommending our brand or another brand in this category? Are they aggressively crawling Reddit threads and they're getting a bunch of negative or positive sentiment? Did someone have a bad experience with their customer service and go on a rant on Twitter? Are there an army of affiliates who didn't understand our product and made all sorts of content that was all wrong, that the LLMs are scraping? Who's feeding the machine? How much are we as a brand controlling it? And what does it mean that the robots are being trained on misinformation? And then we know how fast misinformation spreads. And so it is really a tenuous time. But I think it always comes back to why. Why is it recommending this one? And I think my new job is just try to figure out how to stay on top of it. What are our customers saying about us? Why are they saying it? What can I do to learn from this and make sure that we address all of their concerns? Especially because what we have found in our industry is that when people have been scammed, right? You've probably gotten 10 texts this week that are like, is this a scam? Does the IRS really have a check for me right now? Is there a package for me at the post office? Do I have to pay $1,200 to pick it up? So it's like everything is completely fakakta. And I think, but the fact that, so when people have been scammed, what we have found is that people are very ashamed to admit that they've been scammed. But answer engines are actually a great place for them to reveal their deepest desires and secrets and shame and say, I've been scammed, I've been catfished, what do I do? And that continues to feed the algorithm. So it's been an interesting journey trying to figure out like what to do with this information and how to react as a brand.
And then, Alex, I would ask you, since you're on the employer brand side, you're dealing with, recruiting, company culture. There is another level of scrutiny that comes into the work that you're doing
Yeah.
How does anything change about the way you look at the situation? Does the job feel 10 times more monumental than it did 7 weeks ago?
I think it's more important than ever before because we were talking about that, top of the hour about like disinformation and stuff that's not authentic. And that's why I do what I do, right? It's my job to make sure that you're almost a custodian behind that. You drive the authentic stories. And so it's even now more than ever before because people can, like I've had several recruiters who would create, I think Helen was talking about that, they'll create some crap that wasn't good, not on brand. And you're like, no, we can't do that because that's the wrong message out there. We have the wrong brand colors. We have the wrong brand message. So I think there's a lot more to do. And it does validate the employer brand function more than ever before.
I was going to add on that employer brand. I think sometimes we forget that every touch point a person has with anybody at your company is a reflection of your brand. So from their experience in a store, calling on the phone, randomly meeting somebody at a restaurant and be like, oh, what do you do? And they tell you, and then you also have like a crappy attitude while you're there. Like all of these things help shape the narrative that particular person is going to have of your brand.
So I'll let you start, Helen, on this one. If you could give CMOs one rule for AI and branding, what would it be?
Be willing to be very wrong.
Very wrong.
And learn and adjust, and it's just going to be messy for a while.
All right, fantastic. And I'll actually throw it to the whole group.
Oh, well, I'll take this one. I would say fail fast and be able to pivot. I think sometimes we want to be right so bad that we will commit to something and it is telling us to go the other way.
I agree with that. That's spot on. I mean, definitely fail fast. Like, I mean, I think fail fast. And one of the lines I love the most is be like the smartest animal on the planet, a goldfish from Ted Lasso. Have a 10-second memory. It's okay to fuck up. And then from there, reiterate, try it again, do something different. But I think just holding too firm to like not make mistakes, you're going to make mistakes then.
And I totally echo that. I think this is going to be a learning curve, but I think one thing that I would encourage everybody to not forget is the basics and the fundamentals. Like just because we have new tools, just because there's new stuff out there, does not mean that you forget authenticity in your brand and you lose sight of your mission and vision and you don't try to make that human emotional connection to your audience. I think that stuff is still going to be really, really important as everything else around us changes. I think fundamentals will still be something that we all really need to remember and work on.
So I have two lightning round questions for you guys. The first one is, what experiment do you believe brands must try in the next 90 days?
It will take you longer than 90 days, but I do think that you should do a full campaign doing AI, whether it's just on social, whether it's wherever. Don't do it at an event. Let me just say that. Don't try a new process and a new tool and a new technology when you have a hard deadline. Little tip, unless you want everyone to have a stroke. But do use AI in a creative way to try and make it something that everybody will want to see so that you can understand the great things that it does and the very real limitations. It is not as easy as I think some people in leadership think that it is. You can't just be like, I'm going to create a 30-second video in 15 minutes. Like, you can. We've all seen it. It's going to be awful, but do it on a big scale. Really get to see what this technology can do so that you understand its limitations and where you can actually utilize it.
I don't know that I have a good answer for this, but bear with me here. I think we're at such an interesting inflection point, and I think what I want to do is, it's an important time for a reset. I think because of the prevalence and the proliferation of AI and AI tools and the slop that employees are creating every day at work. I think it's an important moment for brand reappraisal and what brand means, and really educating our company, our employees, about what brand is and what it stands for as we sort of usher into the next era of whatever this is that we're living in right now?
I would say maybe do a small test on voiceover for whether it's a social ad or something like that, where it's on a smaller scale where you're able, because that's a lot of conversation that comes up. Do we use a human voice? Do we use an AI generated voice? Do a test. Have two, one be AI generated, one be human on a smaller scale. So you're able to get that information that you need to help make decisions for future projects that are bigger campaigns, because you have the data there to tell you what performed better and whatnot.
Yeah, I think definitely you need to be creating a companion, or if you're a little more involved with your AI, you need to create agentic AI. You got to have an agent out there doing some stuff. That's probably the best thing to put yourself ahead of the rest of the competition.
Great. And so for our final question, I give you guys the opportunity to revisit a topic that you may have already introduced in the conversation. But I'd love to know what's one principle that should guide brand leadership in the age of AI.
I mean, I think we kind of answered that a little bit and what we think the CMO would take away. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but it's, be ready to make mistakes, be willing to try things, and, don't forget who you are and why you do what you do.
I think humility goes a long way. And I think that I just have a hunch that the pendulum will swing so far in the other direction that with the over prevalence of AI and AI tools and efficiency, and let's make more stuff faster, I think real human generated stuff will be more and more important.
I think remembering your why and your strategy and your mission for why your company exists, why you're doing what you're doing, letting that be the driving factor and never forgetting that.
Yes, I think all of that. And on top of that, experiment like crazy, because the only way to get better, to do different things, to get ahead of your competition is to experiment. And as Jessica alluded to, I mean, we talked about that. You got to mess up. You got to have guidelines in place, but you have to make mistakes and you have to experiment. That's something big that we've actually, over the last 12 months at GoDaddy, that we've been trying to do, is we're trying to be like the #1 experimental company in the world, Alphabet/Google. And the only way to get better and to be somewhat close to them is to experiment. So find any area of opportunity to make things better, to be more strategic, to do less work and leave more space in your brain to get those things done that you've never had time to do. The best way is to experiment.
I want to thank everyone for your time, your candor, and your insight today. I am going to go home this afternoon and try and build an agent to deal with these grackles. But thank you all for joining us, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.